the covering of the face was an interpretation, and the majority of the women of Medina chose to cover their face. That's a fact. But does it mean that it is obligatory, or does it mean it is a sunnah? There is no doubt it is a sunnah act, meaning the act of the predecessors, the righteous women of the past. But is it obligatory? There are two opinions on that. The women of Medina, the hadith says that they came out covering their entire face except one eye, so they can know where they're going. Now here the scholars have differed on this. Wrong. Sisters asked a very good question. So number one, tell us about the niqab. What is the origin of the niqab? Is it sunnah or is it cultural? And are there difference of opinions about the niqab? What is the niqab? I told you already what is the khimar, correct? We all know what the khimar is now. The khimar is a covering, but when you say khumurihinna, the women's khimar, it literally means the one they put on their head like this. The niqab is the one where you cover the face like this and show the eyes. There are different names. There's the one that covers the entire face, burqa and so on and so forth. The niqab is the one that covers the face except for the eyes. Where did this come from? Well, in ancient history, women in different cultures did wear niqab. They did cover their face. Even before Muhammad ﷺ came out. It's documented history among Muslims and non-Muslims, among people before Muhammad ﷺ came. But as time went on, it turned from religious to cultural. And especially the ones in the desert, women wore it for desert purposes. There was a necessity for it. The Mesopotamian women, 8,000 years ago, also covered their face out of necessity because they used to work in the fields. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was no hijab for the first 10 years. What do I mean by hijab? Hijab is a modern word that we use. It's not the word mentioned in the Quran. Hijab is the wrong word, but we use it because of social construct, meaning socially we constructed this word and everybody knows what we mean. The Quran talks it in detail. The niqab is covering the face. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, for the first 10 years, there was no verse about drawing their khimars over their necks and over the sternum and so on. Until 10 years later, this verse came down. And the women it was in Medina. It was in Medina when the verse came down. More than 10 years. The women of Medina understood. Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrates this hadith. They understood what the verse meant because they know the Arabic language. They immediately went into their homes and they covered their hair properly, because in those days they used to put this on their hair, and what they used to do was they used to put it to the back like that, right? And sometimes they would tie it and make a thing, and sometimes I'll make a ball up here like that. I hope that I just did it fast. So they used to do that, and then they covered themselves. The women of Medina, the hadith says that they came out covering their entire face except one eye, so they can know where they're going. Now here the scholars have differed on this. Big controversy, classical scholars of difference of opinion. I don't know how much you all know about the meanings of difference of opinion in fiqh. I don't know if you've ever heard of the word khilaf mu'tabar, which means a difference of opinion that is based on evidence on both sides, which means both of them carry weight and both of them could be right. Both of them could be right more than the other. Anyway, the covering of the face was an interpretation, and the majority of the women of Medina chose to cover their face. That's a fact. But does it mean that it is obligatory, or does it mean it is a sunnah? There is no doubt it is a sunnah act, meaning the act of the predecessors, the righteous women of the past. But is it obligatory? There are two opinions on that. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. One large group of scholars and schools of thought says it's obligatory. It's considered awrah. You shouldn't show it, just like the hair. And the other group say no, because of many hadiths. One of them is one in Sahih Muslim, where Asma radiallahu anha, she had reached puberty, and she would take food to the Prophet ﷺ when he was in the cave of Thawr, when he was migrating, and she would bring him food. And one day, she was wearing something that was a little bit transparent. It wasn't her fault. And the Prophet ﷺ looked away, and he said, "Ya Asma, if a girl reaches puberty, then nothing of her body is allowed to be seen except this and this." And he pointed to his hands and his face. Unfortunately, some scholars of hadith said this is weak. Others, they said it is strong. And they're all reputable and all have their good explanation. The opinion I follow is the scholars who say it's not obligatory. And the reasons they say that is because if it was obligatory, these are some of the reasons which have been refuted as well. Some of the reasons are, if it was obligatory, it would not be impermissible, haram, to cover your face during ihram in Hajj, because the hair is compulsory to cover, the rest of the body is compulsory to cover, yet only the face is impermissible to cover during ihram. The scholars who said that it's not obligatory use this as one of their arguments. The other argument is that when you look at the verse and it says khumurihinna, the khimar is known historically not to cover the face, and Allah would have said cover your face, but He said juyubihin, draw your khimars, which was known to be open, to cover the jayb, and the jayb is from the neck downwards, it's not the face. That's now 3 arguments that they use. There are more arguments, but these are the 2 opinions. Whether you choose this one or you choose that one. This one cannot, the one who has niqab is not allowed Islamically, shar'an, to enforce upon the other one, to tell the other one that they're not wearing proper hijab. Nor are they permitted Islamically to pressure them into that. And the ones who follow the other opinion and don't cover their face, consider it a sunnah, cannot put the other ones down either, or pressure them, or tell them off that they're being extreme. They respect each other. It's a choice, inshallah, and both of them have strong evidence. I personally would go with the easier one because of the societies we live in. It makes more sense to follow the evidence in this society. To me, now a lot of people can say, we don't want your opinion. That's fine, you don't have to take my opinion. But it's not my opinion, I'm following the opinions of the scholars all the way to the end and the sources from the Quran and Sunnah. That it would be easier to take that opinion in livelihood, and Islam is not about making life harder, just easier. However, with the niqab, a sister who wants to fear Allah even more, wants to obey Allah even more, wants to be a more righteous Muslim, may Allah reward her. I applaud that, subhanallah. So brothers and sisters, that's in summary.